seems being in the throes of moving house has actually put a slight delay on this month's build. But not wanting to fall behind and not wanting to let the charity down, welcome back to this, the fourth in our series of the Models for the Heroes charity Kitbash builds, as part of our All About the Bash series here on the Odd-Sided Dice YouTube channel. Now, as I said, because I'm in the process of just moving into my new house, there's a lot of equipment and a lot of gear that I still haven't unpacked yet. And what I wanted to do is make a build for this month, which was quite a bit more straightforward and a bit more of a true Kitbash, when it was just the amalgamation of different kits together to see what we could come up with. I asked a group of friends what I should attempt to do with this build, and they said because I've already covered two of the Chaos Gods, then it might be good to tackle the third. So with our first build we did the Nurgle Champion, with the last video we did the Slaanesh Noise Marine. So now it's my turn to take on Tzeentch and try and come up with a bit of a Sorcerer model for this Chaos God. Now for the main body for this build, I'm going back to the Admech again. And I've had this body for one of the Electro Priests hanging around my kit box for ages, so I've wanted to use on a build. And it just screamed out to me that I think this is the time to use this body. I particularly like the brothel creeper style shoes that this guy's wearing, and the circuitry and the different paraphernalia that he's got on really tied into the aesthetic that I think I was going for with this Sorcerer build. Now the first job I wanted to do was remove any Admech icons from his clothing, from the belt buckle he had round. But I'm going to replace this with a few of other little embellishments when we get a little bit later on in the build. Now, it's during this process that I come up with the idea of another video that I'm going to do later on in this series. I'm going to start having a look at the actual tools that we're using, because I couldn't believe that how many different tools that I went through to try and remove the icons and to get a smooth finish onto the parts where I was removing these sections from. Not only using the hobby blade and a hobby file, but even using a nail pad that's designed for people who do nails. But also going back to one of my favourite ones, a little bit of wet and dry sandpaper, just to finish it off and get the surface as smooth as possible. I wanted to make sure I did this because whoever ends up with this model is obviously going to want to include maybe some more of the Tzeentch icons and logos somewhere on the model, as appears on any Chaos model. So I wanted to give a space where these could be painted on, and where this different iconography can appear. Looking at the different tools and different processes I was doing at this point is really going to tie into the first in this new series of videos I want to do, is looking at one of the things that people tend to struggle with, and that's the removal of mould lines on a figure. We get so many different pieces of equipment that are told we can do this job with, but it's not only what is the easiest one, but I think what is the one that doesn't give the most downsides to somebody new who is trying it for the first time. Now once I was happy that I've removed all the bits and pieces that I wanted to, and before I put any other parts in the way, I thought it's a good time to start putting a few little bit embellishments back. Now there are a number of skulls on the tabard that hangs between the model's legs. So what I wanted to do is go to that other staple of many Kitbashers, the Citadel box of skulls, and put quite a larger skull at the top of that tabard to really give it its chaos feel. Now one of the parts I really struggled with for this build was the arms I was going to use. It took me quite a while to find out something that gave me the look I was going for. And lucky enough, I came across a pair of arms from the Flesh Eater Courts from Games Workshop, from the Crypt. Now, not only were these arms a little bit emaciated because of being part of the ghouls themselves, but also they didn't carry any weapons in their hands, which was a benefit because I want to give some kind of spell effect to this model. But also the talons at the end of the fingers really tied into that bird aesthetic that Tzeentch models tend to go with. So it was just a case of going backwards and forwards with my hobby knife and file to try and clean up those contact areas between the body and the new surrogate arms that will now be involved in the model. Trying to remove little bits of material at a time, making sure they're as flat and smooth as possible, and then just test fitting the arms to them to make sure I'm happy with the connection I'm getting on the model. And once I've gone back and forth a few times, looking at the model from all the possible angles, make sure that I'm getting a joint that I'm going to be happy with and also be able to position the arm where I'm happy with. It's just going back to the plastic glue now to stick these two DW plastic parts together. Just holding it into position for a few seconds, just to allow that plastic glue to start melting the two components, and also for the joint to start curing a little bit. Not too much, because there's a little bit of adjustment that needs to happen at this point, just when I add the next part. The process was obviously repeated for the other arm, and it's this stage now that we're going to introduce the head to the model. Now for this I'm going to go to the Warcry sets, especially the Corvus Cabal. Now this is a set that I've had hanging around bits and pieces for quite a long time, and I've always thought that the heads from this kit, especially these beaked bird skulls that they seem to be wearing on their heads, would really tie in to some kind of cultist or, for this case, Chaos Sorcerer model that we're creating for this Chaos God. Now I wanted to put the head in position first because I wanted to slightly adjust the arms to make sure that the hands were not blocking part of the face. And the reason for doing this is going to become apparent when we go into putting the spell effects in his hands. So with the head glued in place, it was now time to do that final little adjustment just before the glue hardened too much that I wasn't able to move any of the parts that I wasn't happy with. So once I've got the hands in place, the head looking for where I wanted it to be, and I was happy with the overall silhouette of the model, I'm then going to put it to one side to dry before we tackle these spell effects. Now to this stage I'm going to put the question out to you, the viewer, so I'm a bit lost to where this part come from. But diving around in my kit box, I wanted to find something that I could use as a spell effect coming from the hands. And what I came across is one of these parts that looked like some kind of mystical energy that was emanating out from a central point. Now I do want to say that it's some form of, when I first looked at it, that it was the IDNF Deepkin, the Sea Elves from Games Workshop. But looking on the website I can't really find out where it's from. So if you know what kit this is from, and you recognise the part itself, maybe drop a comment below and tell me where this part come from, because I'd really like to know, just for my own amusement, about what kits that I'm putting together for these builds. Now to get the spell effects into his hands, what I'm looking at is the position of the hands and then where the rays start at the one end of the bit of the kit I'm wanting. And all it's going to take now is a little bit of fettling as I remove pieces of material to get the effect to somewhere like there. You can see the model of where those rays or that mystical power is emanating from the model. So once happy with the build, again now it's just a coat of primer to tie all those different parts together, and we're finished with another Kitbash. Again, if this is a model that you would like to add to your own Tzeentch army, please feel free to have a look at the comments below, where the link to the eBay auction for this charity auction will appear. And again, 100% of the money raised goes to our friends from Model and for Heroes to carry on their great charity work that they do. If you'd like to support us, obviously drop a like and a subscribe to this video on our channel. But also there's going to be a Kofi link in the description below, where you can go and donate a little bit of money to help us to fund these models as we move forward with these builds for the rest of the year. So it just goes for me to say thanks very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. I hope you took a little bit of ideas from this build, and it's not what you can do with all the tools you have, but sometimes just a basic Kitbash will let you come up with a character that you really enjoy and will really add something else to your armour. So thanks for joining us. Again, feel free to stop by our Facebook and listen to the podcast as it comes out. But we'll see you on our next video in the next All About the Bash.